Good evening, everyone. Is it audible? Online students, is it audible, visible? Please let me know. Online students? Okay. Thank you, Sohini. Thank you, Vijay. We'll get started. Yesterday, we were discussing the reasons for industrial revolution. Now, we will have a look at features of British industrial revolution. We all know that the first important thing is there are a lot of things that trigger, it's like a cycle. Industrial revolution started because of capitalism. We all know capitalism is a very liberal, it goes according to demand and supply theory. The interference of state is very minimum. Whenever it is needed, the government interferes, or otherwise it interferes only to help business, not to restrict. So, that is capitalism. When you have a lot of capital and labor is there, it really gives rise to innovations. When innovations are there, then it helps industrialization. So, all these things are like cycles. So, there is some kind of a view that there are a lot of intellectuals in other countries, but main reason why England was the home country, I mean a place where industrial revolution took place, there were conducive atmosphere, England has provided that sort of a environment for an industrial revolution to flourish. So, there are other countries like Germany, later it also took that wave. We have seen that USA, later it has overtaken all the other countries, has become very industrialized country. So, more countries in Europe actually took that inspiration and then they really took this industrial revolution continued for 150 years or so. So, that is the point. The first one is it was guided by capitalism, and then factories were privately owned in the beginning, they were privately owned. We all know, we have discussed that already. Most of the manufacturing was done in home itself on a small scale, and also agriculture was main thing, from agriculture to manufacturing, and that manufacturing from home to factories. That is the typical feature of a industrial revolution. Then mass production of goods. We have already discussed that when you manufacture goods at home on a small scale, you do it is like man-made goods. The quality of those goods and the quantity of the goods are different from machine-made goods. Machine-made goods are plenty in number, in abundance, mass production. They are also standardized sizes, because they are all manufactured in assembly lines, and then that is mass production. The doctrine of laissez-faire. So, this is what I told you already, market, according to market, demand and supply theory. So, the main theory of capitalism is laissez-faire. It goes according to demand and supply. That means, if there is a shortage of one good, then it creates a demand. When there is demand, factories produce. If factories produce excessive of goods, then the price of the goods comes down. So, factories know what is the quantity of the goods they have to produce. They produce according to demand. This is such a natural thing in business, and in communist ideology, the government dictates what to produce, how much to produce. This is all governed, dictated by communism. That is the difference between communism and capitalism. You can say the both are quite opposite, poles apart, communism and capitalism. And then, as we have discussed, the role of state is that of a facilitator. It facilitates the atmosphere. It helps business to grow. That is the role of government. And then, indigenous innovation powered the industrial revolution. Indigenous means domestic. We all know that most of the inventions what we have discussed, whether it is the spinning jenny, power loom, of telegraph, phonograph, all most of them are indigenously grown or developed within England. So, it is not imported talent, the talent in England, but as we know, always remember, it is not that other countries do not have intellectuals who can invent, but England created that atmosphere, environment for industrial revolution to grow. So, this is then British manufacturers were very conscious about the quality of the product. Okay. Very interesting, particularly when Japan was inspired by industrial revolution. Japan was the first Asian country to start industrial revolution. It is quite obvious. The reason is, when we talk about Japan and Germany, they are like technological hubs. I mean, they are very good at technology. But very interestingly, in the beginning, Japan was not conscious of the quality of the goods. On the opposite, these people, England people, were very conscious of the quality of the products, because they want their product to be in demand, to be very much famous. That is why they are conscious of the quality. They made sure the product was superior quality. Then the whole industrialization of Britain, it took almost 150 long years. So, that is obvious. You cannot expect such a thing like industrial revolution to take place overnight or to end within 1 or 2 years. It is such a long process. So, it took 150 years. Then overemphasizing of profit generation led to exploitation of working class. So, it happens everywhere. We have seen that in Russian Revolution. Capitalism's one of the drawbacks of capitalism is it does not care about workers. That word which communists use, proletariat. They do not care about the welfare of workers. So, like number of working hours, working conditions, and minimum wages, these are all the 3 important things which are not taken care. And some people really thought these workers are like another cog in a machine. They are like another cog in a machine, or you call it, they are one of the factors of production. That means, cog in a machine means they are like one part in a machine. What happens if that part is not working or not good? We will replace it with others. And then they are like factors of production, land, labor, capital, and human capital. These are all factors of production. and for them this is one factors of production. There is no human touch, there is no sympathy, no empathy, no question of a welfare. That is the problem of a we call it cutthroat capitalism. Cutthroat capitalism does not think or concerned about, is not concerned about welfare of the workers. For them that is like a cog in a machine. Then unsafe environment, inhuman conditions, low wages. I have already discussed all these points. It was the production of consumer goods that fueled the revolution. Okay. I have already discussed the goods can be classified like capital goods and consumer goods. Capital goods are very costly and very complex things to manufacture. You use any machine, okay, and that machine is manufactured in another factory or company. So, that is a capital good, but all these consumer goods are like whatever we use in day to day life, fridge, AC, mixie, all this sort of there are consumer goods, consumer durables. Now, textile sector, try to understand one thing. Sometimes there was a question in UPSC exam from textile point of view. When we talk about industrial revolution, the major chunk of major industrial revolution was on textile industry. Yesterday itself we have discussed, there were 3 inventions: spinning jenny, power loom, and then cotton gin. So, there were a lot of inventions in that field itself, and then it was a huge industry at that time, contributing to GDP. So, that is why you can see industrial revolution from that perspective also. Once or twice that question is asked, okay, textile industry was a very important, explain, okay, or even sometimes industrial revolution is a textile industry, something like that. That means it was very important in industrial revolution. Okay. And we can see here how many times these inventions really produced textile finished goods. For example, the mechanized cotton spinning powered by water increased the productivity of worker by 1000 times. Okay. So, if a worker does that, that is if a machine does, it is doing 1000 times more than a worker, and power loom has increased the production by 40 times, and total textile production between 1780 and 1840 was 50 times. So, that was the impact of inventions in textile industry. Then you can say iron industry, coal industry, other prominent industries which saw industrial revolution in a huge manner. Then social impact of industrial revolution. So, we have seen features of industrial revolution. Before that, first topic, the inventions of industrial revolution. Then, what are the causes of industrial revolution? And third topic, features of industrial revolution. Now, we are going to discuss, this is also important for exam point of view. Then, social impact. You see, it is not only technological thing we have to look at. socio-economic impact of industrial revolution is also considered very much essential. So, what kind of a changes is brought out by industrial revolution in society at that time in England? Rapid increase in population density related to related problems. So, we all know that when there is industrial revolution, lot of production, lot of sales, lot of profits, this is a kind of a cycle. And also to add that the healthcare industry also developed a lot, and the result is population explosion, population growth. So, the biggest problem for all of us is we fail to foresee the negative consequences of anything. You know, industrial revolution was greatest thing to have happened at that time, but people are not aware, people are not prepared to meet the negative consequences. For example, India, we have a demographic dividend. The people, young people are more in India, but it is not a thing to celebrate because the healthcare is not good in India. That is why we have young people. But the positive is, as we have many young people can lead to more production leads to more GDP development, and our job is to now to tap that potential of the youngsters, provide them good education and skill, and then you can become a very good kind of a superpower in the world. But are we doing it? That is a different thing. But in a country like China and Japan, where healthcare is good, life expectancy is 80, the people are very old, country is old, and they are paying heavy price for having a great healthcare system. They have healthcare system, good healthcare system, but they are paying price for that. So, that is a negative consequence for a positive thing, but we should be prepared for that. Now, we all know that population can be positive or negative. Population can be positive when you provide them good skills and education, and then their health, they do a lot of work and then they contribute to GDP. But if the same population is not skilled, they are a liability. They are not assets. This is about population. Now, here people need a lot of people, workers to work in factories, and then these people from villages migrated to cities in search of a livelihood to work in factories and companies. The point is, when poor people come to cities, they have to live in slums, or else slums are made by them. Now, you can see there is a big wealth, disparity of wealth between rich people and poor people. You can see many cities like Bombay and many cities, even in Russia at that time, Leningrad, St. Petersburg. The one side of the city is a very rich, posh area. The very next side to the city is like slum areas. So, then it is the same thing in Bombay, like Dharavi. Okay. So, we need to understand as countries, as administrators, to deal with this sort of disparity in wealth, but that is not happening. So, you can see that there was a decline in mortality rate, advances in medical sciences, which I have discussed, and because of there was more population, and then the two things that happens because of population explosion we have discussed in Russian Revolution. Housing becomes a problem, sanitation becomes a problem, and then you also see health also a problem. Education can become a problem. You cannot impart quality education to all those people. or they are not good enough to access quality education. There can be a plethora of reasons for that. And then urbanization and unemployment. I have already told you, people started migrating from villages to cities, and this is what urbanization. But urbanization without plan and without employment. See, a lot of people come to cities, but they don't find jobs. All of them don't find, or half of them, most of them don't find. Only few people find jobs. It may even give way to crime also. When there are more people with without employment, that is very dangerous thing for any area or a country. These are all the ramifications. Agriculture was unable to absorb the unemployed, so urbanization happened due to push factors. Family migrated from rural areas to industrial areas in search of employment. So, these are all the things which I already discussed. And then there are some great cities like you put aside London, we have Liverpool and Manchester, which are world famous textile industries, as well as world cities like Glasgow and Bristol. All these cities have seen a huge growth in population, very huge growth in population. So, Glasgow, Bristol, Manchester, Liverpool. These Manchester and Liverpool are also famous for football. Then decline of agriculture and village handicraft. You all know, when people migrate from villages to cities, that is a obvious consequence. So, in place of tenant farmers means, those days people who did not have a land, they used to take the land of lots that they were doing. It is part of feudalism. Now, that became, rich landlords became powerful. Then tenant farmers flocked to cities in search of jobs. Emergence of working class. Later, Karl Marx, the author of Das Kapital, father of communalism, called this educated and wealthy working class as bourgeois. He used a different term. These are all communist terms, proletariat for workers, and then bourgeois for educated and wealthy middle class. See, the problem with the middle class is they neither like the high class people nor merge with low class people. That is the problem. In those societies, these high class people, or you call aristocrats, never gave opportunity for middle class to prosper, to perform in politics. That is very clear from the fact that in French Revolution, that third estate, first category, was a force to reckon with, and those people were actually leading the revolution. They were very responsible for French Revolution. In the same way, here factory workers, later they became little bit rich, and they emerged as actually you can call it majority of the people with some education and wealth. You understand, it is your economic status or social status that defines your aspirations. When you are a poor person, you think about 3 square meals a day. When you get that 3 square meals a day, you think about better life standards. When you have better life standards, you think about achieving something else apart from living a peaceful and content life. It could be politics, it could be something else. So, that is why at that time middle class people, actually, as I told you, they cannot mingle with high class people, they do not let them, At the same time, they cannot work for they cannot mingle with low class people. The problem is, at that time they have started some companies, that middle class wealthy rich people. Now these workers, they are working for them. That is what you call bourgeois, and Karl Marx hated them. He censored that this class are bourgeois. For workers, he gave the word proletariat, and then there maybe this communalism, he started thinking about all these theories, Karl Marx. So, conditions of working class, miserable living conditions of the workers. We discussed it time and again. Working conditions are poor, long hours, it could be 12, 15, where in modern times 8 hours are legal working hours. Beyond that, that is overtime, you have to pay for overtime. But there was no concept called overtime at that time. Overtime is your job. They had to work 12 to 15, 18 hours also. So, very unsafe working environments. And then impact of women. We try to understand, first of all, women coming out of their houses happened during Industrial Revolution. So, that is a positive sign of Industrial Revolution. But at the same time, there are some negatives. Truth to be told, women were not treated equal to men in terms of wages, in terms of work. And one more thing is, even children were asked to work in companies, factories, which is child labor. At that time, child labor was not a thing to be serious about. That was very common. Moreover, factories were encouraging women and children, because their wages are very less in comparison to men. So, this was encouraged by factories. So, the positive thing is, they had to come out of the house to work, that is a positive thing. But second, negative thing is, they did not get wages equal to men. That is about women and child labor. And as usual, when you have exodus, when you have population explosion, when you have poor working conditions, diseases will really proliferate. That is a very conducive atmosphere for diseases. That is why there are more bouts of spreads of infection, waves of infections. Now, what is the economic impact? We all have to understand one thing, the economy flourished, there is no doubt about it. Industrial Revolution was really important from economic point of view, and we all know capitalism motto is profits, profits and profits, nothing else. There is no human dimension to it, even at the cost of the health of the workers, mental or physical health, whatever it may be. They wanted production, sales, profits. These are all the concepts of capitalism. You may call it cutthroat capitalism. That is why I say, when countries are embracing capitalism, socialism or communalism, Russia communalism, America capitalism, Britain and France, they followed socialism. So, the point is, you need to embrace a bit of other political philosophies. So, when America follows capitalism these days, it does not mean that America will never interfere in the welfare of the people. America is very well known for working hours now. That is why most of the people would like to go to America. The reason is, in India, in software companies, you have to slog out even after 8 hours, but there after 8 hours, you are not responsible. You do not have to even take call of your boss after 8 hours. So, it is not a very cutthroat capitalism, they do care about working hours. So, you have to mix it up, we have to take the best of each political philosophies for the betterment of the society or the country. That is what happened in America, and most of the countries do it. You know why Russians did not, Russia was a very much lost country, whether for revolution, whether for industrial revolution, both revolutions. The reason is, there were a lot of serfdoms, slaveries in fields, and capital was not available. So, land and labor, which is very important for any revolution, industrial revolution. That is why Russia was the last one to catch industrial revolution. Or otherwise, during Cold War, Russia gave very big competition to America in terms of technology, in terms of space development, everything. The same Russia was good enough. So, it is all what kind of political philosophies, what kind of governments are running, they need to provide that sort of environment, or otherwise you take India, when whole industrial revolution was going on, it took for us, it took at least 19th century, okay, 19th century, even late 19th century. So, that thought of industrial revolution was not there in India. The reason is, we were ruled by British people. Our job was always to get rid of British people, not anything else. Once we do that, we can think about other things. Then, overall amount of goods and services produced expanded dramatically, and the proportion of capital invested per workers grew. Then, new groups of investors, business people, managers took financial risks, reaped great rewards. So, all these things happened after industrial revolution, lot of investment, people started taking financial risk. You see, you take risk in a particular field when you think that there is a boom in that field. You are not going to invest in a field where there is no demand, where there is no scope for development. You take that bet, that risk. So, people thought, okay, this is time to invest. If you may lose, that is okay, but 90% we are going to gain. So, that is the time when all these banks, insurance, investments, stock markets, all financial institutions, because a lot of companies are going to be set up, factories are going to be set up, they have beautiful ideas, inventions, they may have some capital, but they need more capital, they want loans from banks. So, that is how all banking financial institutions started, they were being set up at that time. Now, consumer demand. You see, when consumer is capable of purchasing, that means when you have purchasing capacity, he is going to buy it. That is what created a demand. Demand is created. When there is demand, we know when you have capital, it leads to innovations, industrial growth. This is what happened. The existing system could not keep up with the demand of goods. Then more consumers had sufficient income to afford exotic goods. You see, they were saying cotton as exotic good. So, at that time, exotic means something foreign, something strange for us. For example, spices were exotic commodity for British people when they came to India. That is not known to them. So, for people who are not aware of this, cotton was also at that time exotic goods, and there was a demand for that. And then traders realized they could produce goods in greater quantity at cheaper price. We all know that that is what British people did. They have raw material in the colonial countries, and then they produced these goods in huge quantities and they dumped them. So, they need colonial countries for raw material as well as marketing places. They wanted to sell them. That is how those countries are used by them. Online students, any questions? Okay. Multiplier effect. What is multiplier effect? This cycle, whatever we discussed earlier, that cycle refers to the cycle of consumer demand. I have already discussed this: demand, investment, innovation, industrial revolution. Okay, it comes back like this. This is a cycle. So, this is nothing but a multiplier effect. Okay. Cycle works as follows: increased consumer demand. We always discussed, when there is demand, demand leads to, it prompts entrepreneurs to invest in machines. Here machines, investing in machines is nothing but innovation. To speed up production, they increase profit. This is a cycle, multiplier effect. And one more thing you have to understand, for example, faster production in one area of manufacturing prompts investment in another area. Take the example, you have spinning jenny. Spinning jenny. Spinning jenny is means, what is that spinning jenny? From cotton you make a yarn. Okay. So, that is there. In huge quantities you are preparing yarn from cotton. So, you cannot keep yarn there itself. What do you do with yarn? You make a cloth. So, that clothing is another industry. Clothing is another industry. With power looms you make finished cloth. So, increase of one company or one manufacturing commodity leads to increase of another company or another factory. That may be little bit different, but that is related to it. You all know cotton, yarn, finished goods of cloth, all are of textile industry. Maybe some big companies may have all the facilities in one factory, but at the different time in those days there are different factories. So, you cannot keep yarn, huge quantities of yarn, you have to give it to another company. So, they have to set up clothing factories. So, that is what they mean. Okay. Faster methods of spinning cotton requires faster methods of weaving cloth. Then profit from increased production used to invent further innovations and inventions. You see, you got profit, you got profits. Business people cannot sit on capital for a long time without investment. Okay, for example, you may need some money for your basic needs or to lead a very comfortable life. Then what do you do with the rest of the money? You got to invest it somewhere. So, you cannot keep the capital idle. So, that excess of capital or money will give rise to some more companies or factories. They go and invest somewhere else. So, that is a cycle. That cycle is multiplier effect. The cotton industry becomes the largest single employer of industrial labor. I have discussed in the beginning itself that there is a time where people used to think about industrial revolution as textile industry is the leader of this industrial revolution, then coal, iron, steel, all of them comes later. So, that is why cotton industry becomes a largest employer of industrial labor. Cotton cloth became most valued commodity in Britain's export trade, and then in the realm of technical innovations in the number of people employed, the combination of coal and iron and steam had even greater multiplier effect. So, this same multiplier effect was there in the industries of coal, iron and steam also. Okay? Impact would be visible in the 1830s and 1840s. The introduction of steam locomotion and boom in railroad construction. Okay, because of coal industries, iron industries, locomotion and railroad construction was really developed. That is what is needed for railroads. And we all know that revolutionized the area of transportation, railroad. Even in India, when British people introduced railways, it has a big impact on industries. Then new political forces. What are the political forces? That means middle class. I have already discussed this middle class is a kind of a force to reckon with. Whatever the country, whatever the revolution, whatever the society, whatever the times, whatever the century, middle class was a force to reckon with. They were created by the wealth of industrialization. Particularly, who are the people benefited or beneficiaries of industrial revolution is that middle class people. They stuck in new position in the middle of society. As I told you, they were hostile towards aristocracy. This aristocracy is nothing but a high class society, very high class society. Then lower classes, we know, in between, middle class is sandwiched in between. We all know that they try to become aristocrats, middle class try to become rich class. They cannot, and they cannot stoop down to lower classes also. So, that is the problem. Hostile means not friendly. And what is the reason? Aristocrats always dominate politics, governance, society. Okay. Low class people do not mind it. I mean, people at the lower rung of the ladder, they do not mind being dominated, they are used. But these people now, their mindset is changed. The same thing happened in French Revolution. Try to connect with them. When middle class people started earning money, when they became educated, they first started opposing that privileges in the French society. Why should they have privileges? Privileges should be there by merit, not by virtue of your birth. This is the first thought came to them. They started opposing. So, same thing here. They were angered by the political expulsion from power in a system that still favored aristocrats. They felt they had the wealth, education to deserve a political voice. Here political voice is nothing but they wanted to join politics. Then they also had contempt for the lower classes, particularly the growing mass of urban poor. So, this is not mass. So, try to understand, make no mistake, that is mass. So, when I pronounce, if it is a little bit strange, do not get confused, that is mass. Mass of urban poor. In their lifestyle and political position, they try to separate themselves from this uneducated, politically powerless herd. Of course, the terms are very derogatory for the low class people. They were used with that word herd, like for animals, but try to understand that is how they have described, but it is not fair to say whatever the class, they are human beings. So, middle class people also should give importance, respect to them. Maybe if you do not want to become, merge with, mingle with low class people, that is okay, but it is too much discrimination for low class people. Even the word to use low class people, I am not comfortable with that, because you may say 3 kinds of classes, but that is a problem when people become something, when they earn some money, they start looking down other class people, which is not good. But the point why middle class becomes, a force to reckon with is they are huge in number when compared to aristocrats or low class people. They are very huge in number. So, when you have number, you have that might is the right, that is sort of a thing. Then Karl Marx called these middle class types bourgeois, B-U-R-G-U-O-I-S-I-E. If you cannot remember spelling, this is how to remember, B-O-U-R-G-U-O-I-S-I-E. So, this is pronounced as bourgeois. Okay. So, Karl Marx is very good at coining the words, and he used proletariat for workers. Now, industrialists. What about industrialists? What were their role? We all know they were quite happy, content, amassing wealth. They wanted government to spend on infrastructure. What is infrastructure? Infrastructure is like a connectivity, okay, lay roads, railroads, okay. Then shipping, they wanted a transportation to be very good, because they want to, in that environment, their business can flourish, free trade, and they need free trade. You have to understand there will be lot of restrictions. Business guilds will be there, lot of restrictions. Sometimes people do not allow you in a particular area, sometimes there will be heavy taxes, customs, okay. So, you need free trade. When you have all these things, you cannot do business. And it was very easy for England people. The reason is England was such a big country, powerful country. They can negotiate terms with other countries, have a favorable conditions for business to flourish. If they are a very small country, the other countries will impose a lot of taxes, lot of conditions, restrictions. That is why the industrialists of that country are also very fortunate. They were very happy that there was free trade, and that is what they were expecting, little government interference. This is again a hallmark of capitalistic country. The government interference is very less. Whenever I say this, I remember that sentence, like in our country, our PM used to say that minimum government, maximum governance. Here, minimum government means the interference of government is minimum. The government means control, minimum government. But at the same time, do not think there is no ruling, there is governance, that is maximum governance. If all the governments truly follow that, that is a great thing. but if you say it for the sake of rhyming, for the sake of word jugglery, then that is not going to be effective. So, capitalism truly follows that maximum governance, minimum government. With business and the way factories were run, they believed rising tide lifts all boats. That means, whatever this free trade, all these environments are going to help them. The prosperity that industrialization and free unhampered trade. Unhampered means without any disturbances would ultimately improve lot of everyone. Then bourgeois, whose money often came from industrialization. So, remember who are bourgeois? This new class, middle class, educated and wealthy middle class, termed by Karl Marx, author of Das Kapital, father of communism, were some of the biggest champions of these positions. As I told you, they were the biggest beneficiaries of this industrial revolution. And liberalism. You try to understand this liberalism is a little bit confusing. Confusing means all these political philosophies have core ideas, but again there are some exceptions. You have to remember exceptions. So, for example, when we talk about liberalism, liberalism looks like a democracy. So, people call they are like Democrats, but they are not Democrats. Their ideologies are close to Democrats. For example, the negative thing is they don't support right to vote of women. They also don't support right to vote of all men. They said only property people should have right to vote. That is quite regressive idea even on those times. These two are very negative. And also they first say monarchies must be removed. There should be representative government, democracy, representative kind of thing, where they are responsible for the people. When they say that, is it true that they don't want monarchy? They say monarchy must be there. You understand? Monarchy must be there, but there must be representative government to be responsible to people. So, that is confusing. And one thing, the name says liberalism, but these people don't give importance to women and all men to vote. How regressive it is only to property to people to have a vote, that is another thing. The positive thing about these people is they want to treat everybody equally. How can you say you are not in favor of right to vote, but they say they follow secularism. That means we have to treat all religions equally. So, they follow secularism, that is a positive thing. They want representative government, that is a positive thing. They look like Democrats, but not Democrats. That is the exception. So, these are all the exceptions of liberal theories. So, you need to understand these exceptions very well, otherwise you are going to get confused with that. So, that is liberalism. This is it grew out of enlightenment. So, apart from that, feudalism, colonialism, imperialism, you need to understand these terms, liberalism, and then we will get to know nationalism. They both formed a liberal nationalism also later, liberal nationalism. I will also tell you the background information which all started. It all started after French Revolution, after French Revolution. So, in that revolution, people started talking about democratic ideals like equality, freedom, fraternity, justice, all that. So, French Revolution, as I told you, it impacted whole Europe, okay, and whole Europe wanted to become nation states, going away from the dynasties. That is part of nationalism. So, at one time both liberalism and nationalism combined, they call it liberal nationalism. And this ideology, this thought gave birth to so many nations, so many nations. We will discuss that. Not all those nations, that is a different topic, but we will discuss this liberalism and nationalism. So, the iconic movements like 1776 American Revolution, that declaration of independence. Remember that great Thomas Jefferson in 1776, Continental Congress, Second Continental Congress. He wrote that great piece of Declaration of Independence, and then Declaration of Rights of Man and its Citizens, 1789, French Revolution. When Mirabeau Abbesius led that French Revolution in Versailles Palace, tennis court oath, they were not interested to leave that palace until they drafted constitution, and they first started calling it National Assembly. Then it was constitutional monarchy first. At that time, this Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen started. These ideas of liberty, equality, justice, all that. But there is one negative about it, is Declaration of Rights of Man is very regressive here. What do you think that man is given there? Instead of that, people would have been better. Declaration of Rights of People would have been better, but French society was so narrow minded. We all know that throughout French Revolution until 1946, they did not get right to vote. Who? Women. That is why they were very particular about Declaration of Rights of Man. But nonetheless, somewhere they have to start this democratic idea started. That was a good beginning. So, these two are iconic incidents, one from US, Revolution, American Revolution, the other one from French Revolution. It was also encouraged by industrial growth. Middle class industrialists were also often 19th century liberals. Liberals favored freedom of trade in the manner described by Adam Smith. Are you aware of this man, Adam Smith, who wrote Wealth of Nations? Wealth of Nations. He also got Nobel Prize. People call father of economics or modern economics, Wealth of Nations. They were against both government tariffs, monopolies. What is monopoly? In business, if you are the only company, without letting others to give competition to you, that is done by in different ways. They take government's help, they do different things, they do not let others. Even if others come, sometimes they acquire those companies. You see all big companies, if there is any good startup giving competition to them, what they are doing? They buy it. Acquisitions, mergers take place. In different ways, some big companies practice monopoly. You see East India Company, when British India, they had all the monopoly. That is what happened in terms of that textile industry. All weavers had to lose their livelihood. So, that is monopoly. So, they did not like monopolies, government tariffs, lot of taxes, and mercantilist practices. Again, mercantile practices is government trying to influence trade in the interest of the country. But capitalism is, they go according to demand and supply theory, just demand and supply. Got demand, produce, you profit. That is capitalism. Mercantilist capitalism, we have seen this American Revolution. So, acting in the interest of the government, economic interests. Guilds. What is guild? Guild is something trade associations. So, trade associations sometimes they restrict so many things. They even restrict other players whether to enter there or not, a particular area, a particular business, they restrict. So, sometimes guilds are good, sometimes guilds are not so good. In this context, this is seen as a negative thing. And price wage restrictions. So, normally price wage also it goes according to demand and supply. For example, you want more workers are less, then you may have to pay more. You have to pay more. You can't say that I can't pay more than this. But the point is, sometimes when government restricts that there should not be more than this wage ceiling, something like that, limitations, that is not good. So, liberals favored freedom of trade. Okay. They were against guilds, they were against price wage restrictions, they were against mercantilists, they were against monopolies, they were against government tariffs. Liberals also promoted religious tolerance. I told you they favored secularism. All religions are equal. They had religious tolerance. That is a positive thing. Then reform of the political process, but not full scale democracy. That is what I told you. They look like Democrats, but they are not. They are not. Ultimately answerable to elected representative, but still they want they do not want abolition of monarchy. So, this is very insane. You want representative government and the monarchy, okay. Perhaps that is why UK people are still, they say they are mother of parliaments and they have queen in the place of president, maybe, but that is why they are taking it liberalism very seriously. Supported investment in infrastructure, especially building of railroads, all that. Fija Siddiqui, liberals are, that is an ideology, okay, and I discussed it at length. They look like Democrats, they are not Democrats. They wanted representative government, at the same time they are not in favor of abolishing a monarchy, but the name sounds liberal, and they have religious tolerance. They are in favor of secularism, treating all religions equally. These are some of the chief characteristics of liberals. Is it clear? Fija Siddiqui? Let me know. And which is not given here, I already told you, they were not in favor of right to vote for women and also men. They were in favor of okay, only propertied men should vote. That is their philosophy, very regressive. So, as the title is liberal, they look like very much democratic, but they are not democratic. They have positive and negatives, and make no mistake, you have to be careful with their negative sides. Do not think liberals are 100% positive. They have their negative shades. And then nationalism. Let me tell you, you need to go back to that revolution times, particularly after Vienna Treaty, Congress of Vienna. I do not know whether you are aware of Congress of Vienna. Actually, PRAB, that means Prussia, Russia, and then what is A? Austria, and then B means Britain. These four countries met in Austria. At that time, Austrian Chancellor was Duke Metternich. Duke Metternich. So, all these people were actually, they were nobles, aristocrats, that sort of a people, okay, or you call it conservatives. They were conservatives. Who are conservatives actually? Try to understand this philosophy also. Let me discuss that. We have liberalism, nationalism. I would like to add one more thing, that is conservatives. So, conservatives actually, as the name suggests, they are not interested to change. They want status quo. They want status quo. Whatever the situation, status quo. What was the status quo in France at that time or in European countries? Whether it is France or any other countries, church was powerful, king was powerful, nobility was powerful. These are the divisions of the society. Poor peasants were not powerful. This is the division of the society. Now, the point is, all these nobles or emperors who lost their empires, okay, all of them, even sometimes church people, all of them, they started this ideology, conservatives. They wanted actually after French Revolution, okay, and after that Napoleon, first Napoleon 1, 2, 3 is there. I am talking about Napoleon 1. His ruling is from 1804 to 1815. So, 1815. This Congress of Vienna also takes place in 1815, immediately after the defeat of Napoleon in Waterloo War. These 4 countries have to defeat Napoleon. We have a Napoleon Wars topic also in these 25 topics. We will discuss that later. But now point is, Napoleon has become too big to deal with. He has extended his empire throughout Europe. Then these 4 countries, probably like Prussia is nothing but Germany at that time. Later Germany unified, that is Prussia. Russia, then Austria, that is Austro-Hungary, okay? Then Britain. These 4 countries have to fight to defeat Napoleon. Then they met in this Congress in Austria under the leadership of Duke Metternich, Chancellor of Austria. They were all like what? Conservatives. That means the situation is actually in the society, they wanted previous order. That is, what is that? Church must be powerful, nobles must be powerful, okay? Those kings must be powerful, and very important thing is, after this Congress of Vienna, Vienna is capital of Austria. Now, they have defeated Napoleon. Napoleon occupied so many countries. Now, the first decision was give all these kingdoms to previous rulers. For example, when French Revolution started, it was Bourbon dynasty. Now, in this 1815 Vienna Congress, they wanted to give France again to Bourbon dynasty. Okay. So, a person named Louis Philippe, not Louis 16. They wanted to give Louis Philippe again that, but this time not totally monarchy, constitutional monarchy. France became monarchy, constitutional monarchy, republic many times. So, after everything, after Napoleon, again it became constitutional monarchy. Again there was revolution, simple revolution, it was not very much given there. What happens? He flees France, then he gives it to, republic starts again in France. So, why I am saying is, at that time in society, some people are conservatives, they want first, they do not want any change. Frija Siddiqui, listen, this is another ideology here, political. This is, first of all, they are not interested to change. Conservatives means they are not interested to change. But French Revolution, after French Revolution, they wanted to change, but slow change. Then next people are liberals. They want change. They want representative government. They want religious tolerance, secularism, but they have their own negative, regressive ideas. Okay. Now, other ideology is nationalism. Nationalism, some people even combine both of them. Liberalism, nationalism, they call liberal nationalism. Liberal nationalism. What is this nationalism? Try to understand. Nationalism is actually, this is a kind of a movement that started throughout Europe. Many countries became independent because of this. The point is very simple. Throughout Europe, you had Bourbon dynasty, then Habsburg dynasty, this is Habsburg, that is Austria-Hungary, okay. All this, and Ottoman Empire, are you aware of this? Ottoman Empire had 14 to 15 countries in it. Greek was part of it. Serbia, Herzegovina, Bosnia, Romania, Montenegro, all these countries were part of Ottoman Empire. And Habsburg, apart from Austria and Hungary, they ruled France sometimes, they ruled some of the Italian provinces, they ruled so many countries. Bourbon also mainly France and some other countries. Now, the point I am talking about is, these are all huge empires, and these empires were ruling many countries. Countries means, for example, see, German speaking people, Italy speaking people, or French speaking people, all of them in one empire. You do not have that feeling of nationalism. Oh, this is my nation, it is my mother country, I have to respect it. No, all languages, all races, all religions are there, because dynasties are too big. They encompassed all these languages, religions, everything. So, nation state is simple. They wanted like-minded people, not like-minded people, similar people with a similar background, similar history, similar language, similar ethnicity. They want all of them to be one country. One country. So, because of this nationalism or liberal nationalism, because of this nationalism or liberal nationalism, all these countries broke away from their dynasties. That means 14, 15 countries from Ottoman Empire, okay. Then from Habsburg, Bourbon, you can see Italy was unified, German was unified, all these countries became independent countries, independent countries. If you want to understand simply, see, when this nationalism, liberal nationalism became very huge force, dynasties were overthrown, nations emerged, nations took birth. Before that, these nations were not there, only dynasties were there. Now, nationalists believe that political ethnic borders should coincide with legal ones, that people sharing common language, experiences, customs, culture had a natural right to share the same government. Okay. Liberalism and nationalism were often complementary. That is what I told you, they are complementary. That is why you can call both of them as liberal nationalism, and this ideology was very much the force behind many countries. Particularly you think that 14, 15 countries breaking away from Ottoman Empire, and only the country was there, Turkey. Turkey remained the big country, and from that all these became independent countries, and which we call it Balkan countries, and we all know the background. Balkan countries had a lot of tensions and conflicts. That is one of the reasons for World War I. Now, nationalism created problems for extra ethnic conglomerates. Try to understand who are conglomerates, these dynasties. Normally this word we see conglomerate is used for big companies. We see multinational companies. So, these kingdoms are also multinational. That means they have so many language speaking people, their history is different, their ethnicity is different. So, multi-ethnic. So, it is only possible in India with different ethnicity, different languages, different religions. India continued to be one country. When British people left, they thought India would be divided into so many countries, more than 10 countries or around 10 countries. Of course, it happened, but India became 3 countries. The reason is they have never seen so much pluralism in a country. First time they saw that, they thought, it is going to be divided. But somehow India achieved that. That is the biggest achievement of India. India remaining India is the biggest achievement, despite of its pluralism. But you take Sri Lanka, they speak 2 languages and they want 2 countries. That is the problem with different language people, different ethnicities, different religions. It is always not possible in all countries to be united for a long time, despite differences of language or any kind of religions. Now, in Russia we know Romanovs, Tsar Nicholas II, like that, Romanovs kingdom was there, Austria Empire, and then British Empire. They all were multi-ethnic conglomerates, and then non-unified areas. Later Italy was unified, Germany was unified. These are the 2 topics we are going to discuss after this topic, unification of Italy and Germany. To agitate for larger national structure through unification, it added to the instability of East Europe, Austrian Empire, Balkans, Ottoman, Turkey. I have discussed all this stuff. Now, political and geopolitical impact. The land owning class, aristocrats, were replaced by industrial class. We all know that aristocrats before industrial revolution, aristocrats were the main people who had land, who had politics and everything. They were replaced by capitalists now, capitalists. We have seen this term laissez-faire. A policy took place of a mercantilism, okay, where government acts in the economic interest of the country. Government interference is less, that is in capitalism. Okay. So, government policy of controlling overseas markets meant that nations were strengthened by government control of its economic interests. That is main core of mercantilism. Then right to vote, it also started, both men and women got right to vote, but women took lot of time. The industrialized and developed countries quickly became the strongest powers of the world. You see, Great Britain was very powerful because of industrial revolution and imperialism or colonialism, and then later America has become powerful country. So, lot of credit goes to their capitalism, and then was either thought as developed or underdeveloped. By the end 19th century, United States placed Great Britain as the leading industrial nation. So, it replaced Great Britain. We have already discussed that. Then the 20th century industrial revolution would spread to almost every part of the world. So, by 20th century industrial revolution was everywhere. It was everywhere. Then new types of economic systems developed. So, capitalism expanded in United States, socialism in Britain and France, communalism in USSR, or now it is Russia. As the industrial revolution expanded, industrial nations sought new markets for goods in other parts of the world. You see, this is another first they started colonizing, imperializing for raw material. Now they are exploring new territories to sell goods. Both are different regions, but they want some sort of a territory to take raw material and they dump it. Capitalist nations became imperialistic nations. So, this is very interesting thing. Capitalism, whoever practice, they become imperialistic. Even USA followed imperialism once, extending their rule over other countries' territories. Revolution created technology superior states, encouraged a sense of nationalism, nation ambitions. For example, for instance, steamships advanced weaponry. Steamships advanced weaponry to colonize India. So, we all know they are good at technology, weapons, ships, everything that helped colonization of India and other countries. Japan began to industrialize under Meiji Restoration. Thereafter began conquering their islands. We have seen that whichever island is there near to them, okay, it is not like Great Britain. They were somewhere in Europe, they came to so many far away places, but Japan's intention was just to occupy all the islands around you. Okay. So, that is what they did. Japan's invasion of Manchuria in 1937 escalated conflict towards Pearl Harbor. We have seen that World War II. And then in the United States, Industrial Revolution shared similar patterns. Then similar results differed by geography and culture. With railroads, rifles, Americans were actually taming, settling. You see that in American Revolution, we have seen that east part of America, okay, being colonized by Great Britain, and west part all were left to that native red Indians. So, after America getting independence, what should they do? They have to expand their territory. They have to expand their territory towards west. So, how did they do it? Because they got money, capitalism, they got weapons. Okay? So, they tamed, settled, and then they occupied all those places. American Indians, by driving them with superior weapons and warfare. That is why America is very big today. That is why America is very big. USA wrested control of former Spanish colonies and Caribbean such as Cuba, Puerto Rico. You know, Spanish was also one interesting, if you have to understand, Spanish was never involved in First or Second World Wars. Its participation was very minimum or no. But Spain people were not less than these European counterparts. They occupied whole South America, some of the North American territories also. That is why in South America they speak Spanish a lot. Just like English in other areas, continents, those people speak Spanish very much. The reason is that was colonized by Spain people. Okay. Then USA expanded its reach, including amount of land, resources, number of people under control. Then what is the impact on India? What is impact on India? Colonization impact. Let us check it. Industrial revolution led to powerful class of manufacturers. You see, manufacturers, they are going to lobby British people, influence British policies. You know, earlier East India Company was there. It is monopoly in the business. Nobody can compete. But same British people who came there, they also became rich. Those manufacturers asking British people to free the trade or to stop that monopoly, that they wanted to do that business. It did not help India, because earlier East India Company was dumping goods. Now other Britishers also, manufacturers also dumping goods. It is going to trouble India more. It is going to trouble India. So that was worst thing. And then finally succeeded in 1813, that is Charters Act. Charters Act. So with that act, that monopoly was abolished, and then this marked the beginning of new phase in Britain's economic relationship with India, with government now following the policy of free trade, unrestricted entry of British goods. Don't think that it is free trade for Indians. So another British manufacturers, they are also allowed to flood Indian markets. So the point is, we were not in a situation at that time to give competition to British goods. So whatever industries were here, they died natural death. That was the problem. Okay. So you can see that deindustrialization. Okay. How ruin of artisans, handicrafts, all these weavers. Okay. At that time industry was in India, it is not like in factories, maybe at home itself, whoever weaving, doing all that. Actually what happened, they all have to shut up their business, shut down their business. So this is deindustrialization. We all know machine made goods gave tough competition to man made goods, and then Indians found it very difficult to penetrate European markets. Of course, Indians also tried to penetrate their markets, it was not easy. And one more thing is, there are people, for example, I told you this cloths woven in India, they are of fine quality, but they are very costly. Very few people use it. Like Maharajas, rich people use it to use them. Now, they also developed different tastes, Western tastes, who are patronizing rich Indian people, who are patronizing, you may call it khadi or something. They are patronizing, even now they have developed different tastes. On the other hand, British people made it a free trade because of that Charter Act. That means more manufacturers are going to flood Indian market. So, there is no way for industrialization, that is why it was a deindustrialization for India. On the other hand, when industrial revolution was going on in India, it was deindustrialization. Whatever industry was there, that was declining. Okay. Then why they had to shut their trade? That is why I told you, first East India Company was doing business in India. Now, some manufacturers, rich manufacturers in India, they are also Britishers, they requested British government to start free trade. That means not only East India Company, they also wanted to do trade. So, apart from East India companies, all these manufacturers brought goods from Great Britain, they flooded Indian markets. They are all machine made goods, very cheap. That is why that is the reason. For example, you take Indian weavers, Indian cloth like khadi, who are weaving that. Apart from that, Indian rich people, Maharajas, they were also not interested. They developed Western tastes, Western clothing style. So, who is there to buy their goods now? That is why they had to shut down, or you call it a deindustrialization. Frijaz Siddiqui, is it clear? Frijaz Siddiqui, let me know please. Then commercialization of, ruralization of India. You know, when deindustrialization takes place, what happens? Ruralization. So, naturally, it led to decline of many cities, hence ruralization of India, with many artisans returning to, not back, return means go back. So, return to villages and taking up agriculture. So, overburdening agriculture was also a problematic thing. For example, if a few people are doing agriculture in a village, if a few more are added, what happens? We have to grow more crops, do intensive agriculture, fertility comes down. So, that is what you call stress on land is more because of deindustrialization. Okay, deindustrialization. Then, the peasants already suffering under landlord, money lender nexus. What is landlord and money lender nexus? So, you take money from money lenders, they take exorbitant rates, and then for example, these money lenders give money to agriculture people, farmers, they produce something. When you produce something, you have to pay tax to government people. Again, money is going to landlords or a government. So, landlords are also part of government, because they have to pay tax to British government. So, that is what we say landlord and money lender nexus, that unholy partnership for them. So, increased pressure on land with ruralization and deindustrialization, India became net importer. That means, India was importing more than exporting. So, not a good sign. When a country exports, that is a good economic progress. And then commercialization of agriculture. You see, earlier agriculture was way of life, way of life. That means you do agriculture because that is way of life and maybe for your consumption. That is before this capitalism came. But when you consume or when you grow more than what you require, then you sell it. Earlier it was not like that. You consume it, or otherwise you give it to your relatives or neighbors or something. That is how it was going on, otherwise for barter system. Now, what happened is commercialism started in agriculture. They had to sell for profits, in market. So, it began to be influenced by commercial considerations. Certain specialized crops began to be grown for the purpose of consumption, but for sale in national international markets as raw material for industries. Sometimes British people forced Indians to grow commercial crops because they needed raw material. You take that indigo movement, when British people asked to grow indigo. You see, at that time people were growing something like paddy or wheat or something. They are not in a position to buy it in the market. So, they grow and they consume. Then British people came, they asked, you grow only indigo. When they grew indigo, they did not give them fair price. They did not give them fair price. So, there is another problem. Okay, another problem. So, what should they do? That is they called it repressive plantation system. Okay, it was forced upon them, that was the problem. Then development of industry and lopsided industrial development. See, industries developed, that was a good. What is lopsided? What is lopsided? Lopsided means only some important industries were not developed, like heavy iron and steel industries were not developed. And if the development does not take place in some areas, that is not good. Overall development is needed. So, in a few areas development happened, industrialization happened, and then in only few industries developed. That is what we know lopsided. There is no balance. Few areas developed, few industries developed. Particularly heavy industries were ignored. You see, when Tata started steel and iron, all this, that's when industrialization started, because you need these metals for all other sort of industries. So, heavy industries were ignored and few areas were developed. That is why it is known as lopsided industrial development. Rise of Indian bourgeois. Rise as Indian bourgeois. So, you can see that bourgeois is a middle class educated wealthy person. Indian traders, some Indian traders with the help of British people, they also amassed wealth and became rich. So, earlier we discussed bourgeois of Great Britain at that time, now bourgeois of Indians. So, some Indians who tried to be very close with the British people earned money, they became Indian bourgeois, and bankers amassed some wealth, junior partners of British capitalists. They further provided loans to Indian agriculture, aided British revenue. So, when they give loan to agriculture farmers, they grow something, they have to pay tax, again that is helping British people. And economic drain. Okay. So, whatever is happening, that money is not coming back to India. For example, you see the major components of drain among other profits were foreign investment, no return for foreign, they are investing here, but money is going to Great Britain, banking, insurance services, okay, and payments on shipping, interest on loans, civil military officials, all this money was going back to Great Britain. And then now actually I would like to, I mean, there are revolutions in Japan, Russia, all that we need to discuss in a very brief way. As I told you, this industrial revolution also spread in other countries. The main country is Japan, I mean Germany. There was a time Germany was giving competition to Great Britain in terms of this industrial development. So, they also had that metals, iron, okay, coal, everything, and they also developed a lot. So, that was very much second to Great Britain. And we have seen that it took some while in France, because France was struggling with the political matters. They did start some metal industries, but development took place. And then this industrial development, I mean industrialization or industrial revolution took place in America also. But America developed like anything. That is the reason they have become such a superpower country. They immediately overtook Great Britain as superpower or economic power. And this industrial revolution happened in Japan, first in Asia. Japan was the first one, but they were not like concerned about the quality of the goods, but they did have that revolution in Japan, first Asian country. When it comes to India, as we have discussed, that thought never occurred. India was still struggling to get independence. So, this is like how other countries were. And when you take Russia, Russia was the last country in Europe, whether it is a revolution or it is industrial revolution. They started very last. The only reason is capital was not there, labor was stuck in with serfdom. Serfdom means what is serfdom? Next hearing from next class now. Please start next heading from next class now. Frija, I do not understand what is the question. Please start next heading from next class now. Can you explain that? I do not understand that question. Are you asking me what is the next topic? Okay. So, if you want me to tell next topic, we are going to discuss that small topic, unification of Italy and unification of Germany. Not very small topic, but smaller than this one. So, that is the what were I talking about? Industrialization, industrial revolution in all other countries. So, India was the last one. I mean, I was talking about Russia. Russia, land labor was not available, and that is the reason they were last to embrace industrial revolution. Okay. There are other topics like very much in detail, but I checked that all the content, these are the very much important topic from exam point of view. So, next topic is just 5 minutes. It seems like Saturday syndrome is heavy on the people. So, I will just try to discuss, I mean I will try to make it exciting for you. I just try to give some introduction to unification of Italy. So, this is Italy, unification of Italy. So, now actually Italy was made up of 7 states, okay. So, this is one state, 2 kingdoms of Sicily, It was ruled by Bourbon dynasty, Then it is the only territory ruled by Italian king. His name is Victor Emmanuel II. That means before unification of Italy, these are the 2 territories, that is means Sardinia and Piedmont. This is Piedmont. These 2 territories were ruled by Victor Emmanuel II. He was Italian emperor. And 2 kingdoms of Sicily was ruled by Bourbon dynasty. Okay. Then next one is Rome. Yeah, Sanayam Sakre, I mean, I know that there are lot of slides and I have checked all the contents, different resources, okay, and all resources, whatever we taught, that is beyond those slides, and all the slides are like what was industrial revolution in Japan, industrial revolution in Germany, industrial revolution in Russia, okay. I have compared everything, that is not actually needed, okay. As you are asking me, I will try to discuss again. I mean, I will see whether there is a need for that exam point of view, because try to understand actually these are 25 topics and I had to finish in how many days? Each day 2 classes, that means 12 to 13 classes. In 12 to 13 classes, I have to complete 25 topics, but I am going in detail. So, now we have discussed 6-7 topics in 9 classes, I mean 8 classes. So, we are discussing one topic for a day, 2 hours for one topic. So, according to the slides whatever I have seen there are 22 pages, 40 slides were there, but maximum we covered, but whatever is there, this industrialization, industrial revolution in detail in other countries, 99% that content is not given in most of the resources. I will check it again, if there is really necessity, I do not have any problem, I will discuss again. So, that is the reason I am starting another topic. So, Sanam Sakre, I think I am not able to pronounce your name, sorry for that. I think you understand. If you still not okay with that, let me know. There is no missing the topic, we will cover all the topics. So, at that time Rome capital, okay, was not part of Rome for 1400 years. 1400 years Rome was not part of Italy. It was ruled by Pope, so it was known as Papal State. What was that? Papal State. Papal State means it is like Vatican City, church, something like that. King, it was ruled by Pope itself. Then we have here Tuscany, then another one here Parma, another one here Modena, then we have Venice and Lombardy. Okay, Venice and Lombardy, 2 states. So remember 7 states totally, 7 states. So first one, 2 kingdoms of Sicily, then Rome, then Tuscany, then Parma, then Modena, Venice, Lombardy, then the last and important one, that is ruled by Italian king, that is Victor Emmanuel II. So here all these 7 states, particularly 6 states, were ruled by different kingdoms, but important kingdoms are 3 here, mainly 2. These southern parts of eastern Italian states are ruled by Bourbon dynasty, which ruled France also. Then this Venice, or at that time it was known as Venetia, that beautiful place where you see water in the streets, So Venice and Lombardy, that was ruled by Austro-Hungary. What is that? Habsburg Empire. Yeah, certainly history topics are interlinked with not current affair, and it may be part of general knowledge. Okay, you see all World War I, II, they are very important. Okay, and you get a lot of questions from history, 7 to 8 questions. 7 to 8 questions, that is the highest in comparison to other subjects. So now Rome, then later we have Tuscany. There is a very beautiful tourist place. A lot of Indians are flocking to that place now, Tuscany. Okay, and then we have Parma, Modena. So these 2 are Sardinia and Piedmont, ruled by Victor Emmanuel II. Now the point is, somebody has to defeat this Bourbon, and then this Habsburg Empire, that is Venice and Lombardy, then this papal state ruled by Pope. Okay, others are very small kingdoms, and that is very much negligible. So how this is done? Who are the people? There are 3 main people. So one is Giuseppe Mazzini, then Count Cavour, then we have one more person, that is Garibaldi. Okay. So Mazzini actually was part of a secret society named Carbonari. So these secret societies were very important. They all wanted nationalism. I discussed in the just now, nationalism, all wanted nations, countries. So these people were not only fighting for Italy, it happened in France also. These liberals and nationals, liberal nationals, they just don't want to confine to their country. They wanted to spread this ideology of national liberalism or liberal nationalism throughout Europe. They wanted to dispossess all the dynasties and replace them with democratic nations. That was their mission. So He was part of a secret society known as Carbonari. Later he himself started two secret societies. One is Young Italy, the other one is Young Italy. Okay, we will. When he started these secret societies, he actually was exiled. He was imprisoned and exiled, but he still started his movement. Actually, this Garibaldi, who became very popular later, Garibaldi was also part of Mazzini's secret societies. Okay, we will discuss more about the societies and then how he was able to achieve, but actually Mazzini tried very well, but he was not successful. Count Cavour was not a revolutionary. Try to understand, Mazzini is a revolutionary, Garibaldi is a revolutionary, but Count Cavour is like chief minister for Victor Emmanuel II. Victor Emmanuel II. So, try to understand, this guy is the monarch, like a king, and all these people work very hard. They unify whole Italy and they keep it on the platter for Victor Emmanuel. They make him emperor. Same thing happens in German unification. Otto Bismarck, he did all the hard work and gives this whole nation to Kaiser William emperor. He rules it. Same thing here, all these people work very hard and give it to Victor Emmanuel II. So, we will discuss in detail. Time is up. Have a nice weekend. I can see a lot of Saturday syndromes. Online students, Vijay, is your doubt cleared? Okay then, see you in the next class, that is next week.